Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Okay, everyone. Erev Tov, just continuing again our discussion on Kitniyot. We have one small piece left in Peninei Halacha with regards to Kitniyot. So we've established so far the difference between the Sfaradim and the Ashkenazim, between eating Kitniyot and not. We talked about what happens if a Sfaradi is married to an Ashkenazi. They have to follow the husband. And if the husband is no longer alive, then you look at whether or not they have a child or not, and whether there's a child in the union. And then we spoke about some other things last time. So just quickly here at the end, he talks about that there are certain situations where a person would be allowed, a person who does not eat Kitniyot would be allowed to eat. And again, although this doesn't apply much to we Sephardim, but nevertheless, for the Sfaradim that don't eat rice, for example, there would be situations where you would be allowed to eat rice, as he goes on to explain. So he says, Gam be'Ashkenaz, barur sheminhag yisur kitniyot, eno hamur k'achilat chametz. We know that the eating of kitniyot, even in the Ashkenazi lands, even in the countries where they prohibited kitniyot, is not as hamur, it's not as strict as eating chametz. We also said that it's not chametz. We also learned that in previous classes that the kitniyot you don't have to sell. It's not actual chametz. You can own it in your house even though you don't eat rice. V'lachen bishat adchak, in pressing circumstances, kibeshanot betzurat v'ra'av. Kibeshanot batzoret v'ra'av, in years where there is hunger and famine and inflation. I don't know what you want to call it, but really tough times. Hitiru gedolei Yisrael lechol kitniyot. The rabbis permitted the Am to eat kitniyot. Omnam lemaaseh, however, pe'amim rabot k'shayita batzoret, there were times in history where there was a famine. Nechleku harabanim ima sha'ad dechuka maspik kedei la'ati kitniyot. We see in the books that were written that the Chachamim were at odds whether or not this is enough of a reason to permit kitniyot or not. There were those rabbis that felt there was enough of a reason to be lenient and to permit eating rice and all these and corn and all these things that normally they would prohibit. And there were those that were machmir. There are some rabbis that only allowed it to give to the poor people. And the poor people, unfortunately, didn't have the means to purchase other foods, to forget about the kitniyot. But for the wealthier, they did not allow it, because they had financial means to purchase other foods. So when you're stuck, okay, what does a famine mean? When you're in a time of batzoret and ra'av, it just means you could access to food. You just got to pay exorbitant prices. You want meat, you got to pay a lot of money, okay? But the wealthy people had the money, so they could technically go and buy all the meat that they want and buy all the foods that they want because they had the cash flow. And with that food, they would forget about the kitniyot. They don't necessarily need to go and buy the rice. But the poor people who didn't have the financial means to do so, they were permitted. The Chachamim would allow them to eat kitniyot in those circumstances. ובעניינים אלו צריך לנהוג בכל מקום לפי הוראת הרבנות המקובלת שהיא המרה דאתרא. And in whatever circumstance you are in, then you can go and speak to your rabbi, the mara de'atra, whoever's the head of the community there, and he will guide you as to what to do. ויש מהאחרונים שכתבו, there are some אחרונים that write, שגם כשמקילים, even when you are lenient in such a case, ראוי להקל תחילה באותם מיני קטניות שאינם דומים למיני דגן. That if you're going to eat kitniyot, eat those that don't look like the 5 types of grain. ורק כשאין ברירה אפשר להקל גם באורז, okay, vekusemet, right? So in those situations, only when in really, really difficult circumstances, that's when you can eat rice. So rice, out of all the kitniyot, is kind of like the last option if you're forced to eat kitniyot, because rice really does look like dagan. It looks like the 5 grains. Ve'od katvu kama acharonim, and the acharonim also, right? Shegam keshemekilim, even though you are mekil, yesh lachlot tchilat kitniyot b'mayim rotchim. It's always good to parch the kitniyot in boiling water, like have water boiling and put it in there. Shebeofen zeh gam minei dagan ena machmitzim. That water is so hot, okay, that even minei dagan won't become chametz with boiling water. Ve'av shel maaseh en mekilim kayom lachlot minei dagan. Even though nowadays we don't have that leniency, we don't say that you could take wheat and barley and put it in, and parch it in boiling water and it's not chametz. Mikol makom kasher yeh chechrech leakel b'mina kitniyot, when it's necessity to be mekil to eat kitniyot, mutav letaken b'ma she'efshar. We can decree whatever we can in order for people to eat in those situations. Lastly, he writes, "V'chen mutar lachole hatzarich leechol minei kitniyot leochlam bepesach." This is a very famous minhag amongst the Ashkenazim. These people that are sick, that are not well, the Chachamim allow them to eat kitniyot on Pesach. Va'afilu keshe'en b'machalato sakana. And even when his machala, his sickness, is not something of life and death. Obviously, if it's life and death, there's not even a she'elah. Okay, life and death, you eat the chametz on Pesach. You don't even have to tell me kitniyot. But even when it's not a sakana, the person is really not well, he's just in bed or whatever, then we give him kitniyot to eat. Lemashal, for example, one type of sickness that he says is quite common. Hasovel me'atzirut. So if a person is suffering from constipation, it happens on Pesach, a person is suffering from constipation, so pishtan is flax, and that's a type of kitniyot, okay, that this person is suffering a lot. We can soak flaxseed in water for this person to drink, because this helps a person let the excrement flow out of his body and help relieve him of the constipation. So that's a good example of where we would allow kitniyot in makom chole. Makom achaz is a sickness that's not really the guy's dying, but he's still considered a sickness that we would allow kitniyot in that situation. V'chen mutar lehaachil machale orez latinokot hatzrichim lekach. Certain children and babies, they eat rice. Okay, rice cereal when they're infants and they're toddlers. This is something that's very common. So you would allow this to give to kids, little kids. They can give them kitniyot to eat in their rice cereal or whatever it is that they have. But you should set aside separate kelim for them so you don't have to get mixed up. Whatever it is that you do, if you're being mekil and you're being lenient and you're allowing this for these circumstances, yesh livror hetev et hakitniyot. Like we said, you have to check each one of these grains, if this kitniyot, this rice, this corn, whatever it is, shema me'orabim mahem gargirei dagan, because we need to make sure that there's not mixed up in that corn or that rice, God forbid, anything of chita or se'ora, which could make it into chametz. In chas v'shalom, you'd be eating chametz on Pesach. Bezat Hashem, next time we'll continue with a new topic. Maybe we'll look at the laws of achilat matzah and other parts of Pesach.